Tonight, there's new evidence of Trump's disregard for the rule of law. The Washington Post analyzed 160 court cases against the administration so far, and they found that Trump officials are accused of defying 1 in 3 judges who ruled against them. The Post reports that Trump officials have been, quote, snubbing rulings, providing false information, failing to turn over evidence, quietly working around court orders, and inventing pretexts to carry out actions that have been blocked. Meanwhile, Trump is abusing the court system to target his political enemies. On Friday, he filed a libel suit against the Wall Street Journal for its reporting on Jeffrey Epstein. It's all part of a larger pattern of Trump suing media companies whose reporting he disagrees with. The administration has also detained and arrested elected officials who oppose Trump policies. One top Trump official hints that even former President Obama could be next.
This treasonous conspiracy was directed by President Obama, enacting what would be essentially a years-long coup against President Trump. We are referring all of the documents that we have uncovered to the Department of Justice and the FBI for a criminal referral. There must be indictments, those responsible, no matter how powerful.
That's the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, essentially trying to flip the script and blame Democrats for alleged Russian interference in the 2016 election. The Bulwark took a look at Gabbard's so-called evidence and, quote, called it a nothing burger. Well, joining me now to discuss all of this is my colleague Ruth Ben-Ghiat from New York University. She's a professor of history and an expert on authoritarian governments. So, Ruth, let's break this down. This new analysis showing that Donald Trump's administration is essentially defying 1 in 3 judges and their orders. This seems like a classic strong man tactic that we've seen historically in authoritarian governments. How does this translate here in the United States, and what comes after?
So one of the way that authoritarians think is that the law and all institutions have to become their personal tools. And they exist to solve the leader's problems, keep him safe, and go after his personal enemies. So it's a personalization of power. And there's also, we've been seeing, and Donald Trump has been very resolute about this, an attempt to delegitimize the entire democratic notion of justice and any values of impartiality, equality, accountability. All of that has to be destroyed. And so judges become a kind of symbol of all of this. And so he's gone after them since 2022. The Washington Post and Reuters have done investigations. And so the purpose of going after judges, for example, is to show that no one is above ridicule, no one is above being weaponized and being shown as corrupt, to destroy their integrity.
Well, so the attacks on the judges and the attacks on the media seem to be of a piece, and it's noteworthy that both the courts and the media have been the two institutions that have really stood up to this president. Congress has not done a great job of doing this. The executive branch is totally within his thrall, but these two institutions have done it, and they're the ones that he is focused on with a laser-like kind of interest. How does all of that fit together? And what happens if we lose the courts or the media or both?
Well, we see in authoritarian states, because the reason they go after, they want to domesticate the courts and go after the media, is that autocrats live in fear. They live in fear of having their secrets uncovered that can lead to them being held accountable. A lot of autocrats meet a bad end. They end up having to go into exile, and they watch what each other is doing. And so the attempt to domesticate and make the press capitulate and try and intimidate the press is all about the autocrat having his guilty fears. So we have to remember that when we think of the strong man, they're actually acting out of weakness and out of fear.
So how do the universities play into this? There was a major hearing today in the lawsuit against the administration that Harvard University has filed. And Harvard argued in that hearing that nothing less than academic freedom, the First Amendment, the rule of law were on the line in that lawsuit. How do the institutions of higher education play a role in this, and how do they fit into this strongman kind of model?
Well, ultimately, education is about impartiality, objectivity. When I do my research, I'm guided by facts. And just like whether it's in journalism or in the courts, where you build your case based on facts, you make arguments. There's a lot of parallels between history and law. All of that must be destroyed. All of that must become a tool of the leader
and demonized.
And demonized. And so just as judges are trying to be brought down by Donald Trump and showing them as devoid of integrity, so must professors and university presidents, everyone who has anything to do with objective research and education, because authoritarians think about indoctrinating people into the future. All of that has to be delegitimized and discredited.